When I say the term cultural appropriation, what pops into your head? If you were to ask me, let's say a month ago, I probably would have said something like Katy Perry that one year at the AMAs, or Katy Perry wearing cornrows in a 2014 music video, or Katy Perry's outfit in another 2014 music video. Okay, enough Katy Perry jokes, but you gotta admit, she was kind of on a roll that year. So, why do I bring this up? Because cultural appropriation is a buzzword right now, and not in a good way. In this video, I have two goals, and that is to teach you, one, what cultural appropriation exactly is, and two, to examine between the fine line of a cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. Let's get into it. If you're still wondering exactly what cultural appropriation is and wish you had a definition, bam! I'm so glad you asked, because this is the official Oxford Dictionary definition of cultural appropriation, and that is the act of copying or using the customs or traditions of a particular group by somebody of a more dominant, aka powerful group in society. So there you have it. That is the official dictionary definition of cultural appropriation. So remember when they said it's often performed by groups that are more dominant in society? Well, unfortunately in America, and in this video, I'm going to specifically talking about cultural appropriation in regards to race. Now, cultural appropriation is a huge deal to me because I've experienced it time and time again, and I believe that there are two opposing views that both fail to understand how it fully affects people every single day. You would not believe the amount of times I have heard people say things like, cultural appropriation isn't a real thing. Everyone's being so sensitive nowadays. Or, yeah, cultural appropriation is really bad, but I post about it and I've never been guilty and it doesn't really happen around me, right? So for all the cultural appropriation deniers, I have unfortunate news for you, and that is cultural appropriation did happen, it does happen, and it continues to happen in America. There is such a rich history that we have of cultural appropriation, it's not even funny. From imitating people's cultures to just using people for entertainment value, cultural appropriation has been happening for years. If you think this is just some twisted part of our past and that cultural appropriation is over with in America, unfortunately, you'd be incorrect, because people still often think that it's okay to use cultural appropriation, especially in a lighthearted tone, or if it's just a joke, a costume, or a mascot. Just look at the stats of American adults who think it's still okay to dress up as another culture or race for Halloween. And these are real stats from recent times. It is not an issue that is behind us. Cultural appropriation is serious because when people dress up or use someone else's cultures for their own benefits, for trendiness, or for laughs, it actually really diminishes the value of someone else's culture. Don't get me started on how cultural appropriation reduces people to mere stereotypes and often actually gets their culture wrong. If you think that trends and slang are completely in the safe zone in comparison to dressing up as a whole new race for Halloween, it's actually also problematic to the people who create such culture. The same people can be ridiculed, marginalized, or given no credit for their cultural expression. Yet, someone from a different race comes along and does the same thing and often gets praised or more credit, which is that's gotta be so frustrating, and it does happen. Are you familiar with TikTok star Charli D'Amelio? Well, how about Jalea Harmon? If you're only familiar with one of these names and not so familiar with the other, cultural appropriation is a big part of the reason why. In 2019, Charli D'Amelio made a TikTok video of her doing a dance that people know as the Renegade, and that went crazy viral, really viral. And since then, she has launched herself into stardom and has a huge platform of followers. Now, would it surprise you if I told you that the dance actually was originated by 14-year-old creator in Atlanta, Jalea Harmon, who originated the dance but received much less credit? Now, fortunately, Jalea has gotten some credit since the dance, but there is a stark difference in their platform followings, which just goes to show how drastic the effects of cultural appropriation really are. And this isn't to say that D'Amelio isn't deserving or hardworking of our platform, but it does make you think, why doesn't Jalea have the amount of followers that Charlie does? Hint, I believe it to be the real effects of cultural appropriation and the double standard which we hold for culture. And if you're thinking, oh my gosh, she's shown so many facts and stories and etc. to prove that cultural appropriation is everywhere and in everything, so what am I supposed to do about it? If you or someone else you know happens to be accused of cultural appropriation, rather than getting defensive, try to listen and keep an open heart and mind. Remember, cultural appropriation is not a one-size-fits-all rule. Different people have different standards, and it's important to respect those boundaries because it personally affects them much more. And on a happier note, I am so aware of the culture that America has and the diverse peoples that make us who we are. Last week, I went to a Japanese food festival, and it made me think of this video because I think about how culture is experienced firsthand and how beautiful it can be when respected and admired. And to be completely honest, I think that we can all do some good with cultural appreciation because it helps to fight the ignorance and stigmas that come with cultural appropriation. And by appreciating a culture in a respectful way, we are fighting cultural appropriation. Well, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching this little crash course on cultural appropriation and a little bit about cultural appreciation, and hopefully you can now differentiate the two a little bit better.